Okay. Um, so I have a lot to cover. Let me just make a little note here because thoughts literally fall out of my head. I want to make sure I tell the story. All right, all right, all right. You ready? Well, I'm not. Um, okay. So we get the dogs, right? Tori's pregnant for the first time. I remember watching her give birth, and that was the first representation of birth I had ever seen. Um, though my mother did not hesitate to teach me what sex truly was. It was never like the birds and the bees. It was like mommy and daddy fucked, and this is how that works, kind of thing. She also told me, sorry, essay warning. She also told me from a very young age to just expect that someone would sexually assault me at some point in my life. Um, and if that happens, to just go limp and let them. And I feel like that really was a core thought that went with me over time, that eventually not only pertained to that aspect, but also bled into like, if they want this from you, then do it. If you do this, they won't hurt you. Uh, and that theme is shown throughout my life. But from here, things are going. We're having the babies. I remember that first litter. B and I were excited. Obviously, my dad wasn't. Steve didn't really. No, not really. But we were young, second grade. B was about 3 years older than me, so we were young. Of course, animals are cute. Uh, and then it just like continued, right? Like I remember for the first time in my life seeing puppy feces and how small it is and how weird it smells and just like all of these details that I should never have had to have known in the capacity that I did. Uh, Eventually, once we got enough dogs in the house, uh, I believe they did end up giving some away. I don't know, my memory's really hazy for that. I really only remember like the swarms of dogs, I suppose. We also had a black cat named Orphe that primarily slept in Bee's room, and he had so many fleas that ended up killing him eventually. Sorry, like I said, animal abuse, man. um, but the dog thing continued. Eventually, after what that looked like after that really began is people at school started distancing themselves from me, and I started getting really lonely. Uh, my friends didn't want to see me anymore. They wouldn't stand next to me in line. They wouldn't talk to me. I remember I got to a point where I was so terrified of attention, because any attention was bad attention at this point, that, and this haunts me. This is like a core memory of one of the first times I experienced overbearing guilt. Um, but I remember my dad had taken a lunch off to come eat with me at the cafeteria. And mind you, he worked an hour away and he had two jobs. So I don't know how he worked that out. But I remember just being so distraught that he was there because people were paying attention to me. I didn't want them to perceive me or see me. So I started crying, and my dad didn't have lunch with me and he left. And even sitting here with you now, I tell you, I have the same thought every time that I remember it, and that's that I regret it so much, but I know I'm going to regret it more later. Anyway, I was a very lonely child, and Kay, like I said, childhood best friend. It's been so long. Love that girl. Uh, but Kay ended up being like my only friend. Before Kay and I had found each other, um, I remember, so my bedroom was always filthy. Like, I'm talking toys everywhere, clothes everywhere, garbage. Um, my mom would do these purges once every couple months where she would just clean everything and everything would look amazing, right? But the vast majority of the time I lived like that. I didn't really understand how to organize or clean. I didn't really understand. Like thinking back now, I'm like, I cannot imagine how dusty some surfaces in my room would have been. Or in the house. Like, anyway, I digress. But we had a mice issue, like really bad. Um, Food stopped feeling safe to me that had been open longer than a couple hours. I still have that issue to this day where if like let's say a bag of chips is opened and it's open for more than 2 days, I immediately don't think it's safe food anymore. And I still really struggle with eating it. If anything's stale, I still really struggle with eating it because it was so it was so normal at that point for me to open a bag of closed chips and there would be rat feces in the food. Rat feces everywhere, like on all the shelves, um, in my room. And I know at one point they must have put rat poison down because I came home from school one day. Excuse me. Anyway, I came home from school one day and there was this mouse just like laying in the middle of my room, on top of some clothes, and I it let me pet it. It let me pet it. It like was breathing, so I was like, "This is my friend. Like this is my little buddy." And I took a shoebox because I didn't know any better, and I like used a marker and like drew this mouse a house. And I labeled each one of them. I said one was the living room. We had the bedroom. I even had like a sick gaming room in there for him. Like this little bro was gonna chill if this stuff was real. But of course, in the eyes of an adult, it was an empty cardboard box. Um, and so I put him in there and sat with him and talked to him and pet him. And after a couple days, I came home and I got my first whiff of the scent of death, um, of a decaying corpse. And it was so potent in my room. I remember like my stomach turning, but it wasn't really that much worse than what I was already used to smelling every day. And so I went to go check on my rat friend, and he was dead. And I took that very hard, um, sobbing, like incoherent sobbing, because it was like, I just didn't understand why I wasn't good enough, why nobody wanted to be my friend, why I was alone. Um, One day I was sitting on the lawn literally pulling grass out of the ground. I was sitting on the lawn pulling grass out of the ground when this girl walks past me and she catches my eye. And I don't remember which one of us said it, but somehow I think I called after her. I just said hi, and then she said hi. And she came over and she chatted with me. Um, and I said, "Do you want to play?" And she said, "I have to ask my parents." And she left. And I honestly thought she was never coming back. And at this point, I wasn't even surprised. I wasn't even surprised. My feelings were hurt, but my feelings were always hurt. Um, but she did come back. She came back and she sat with me. Um, and that first day we pulled grass together and talked. Um, and that was the start of a very toxic friendship, that was so full of love and strength and resilience. Because, man, there were times where Kay and I were horrible to each other, man. Like, we were so toxic. I was so clingy, and she was so she was so like deflective, right? Like she didn't know how to react. Um, and so it was really just like the worst versions of ourselves came out to light because we were both in, I'm not, like I said, not going to disclose her story, but we were both enduring really severe situations. And then finally, for the first time, since this had happened, I had someone that didn't understand what it was like to not be clean, but knew understood what it was like to be hurt. Um, and a trauma bond started that day. That continued with her staying in my house. You got to think, like, she was staying in my house. We chose my house over hers, and it became an all the time thing. Um, it's been 2 decades. I still love Kay. She'll always have a big piece of me. And she does some things in my life that has saved it numerous times. But some of the things she spoke with me about were the catalyst of things that led me to who I am today. It was the catalyst of what path I was going to take in life because I was heading straight down Darkville, right? And she was like, well, what if we just like, you know what I mean? Um, So I really do owe my life to so many people, and I'm lucky to say that those people love me unconditionally, and it doesn't cost anything.